Hello and welcome to part B of the 18th century lecture. We will have some men, we'll finish up with men, then we'll do women and specialty costumes, and then we'll move on to the neoclassical period. Again, my camera's on in this part. It won't be on in neoclassical. I'm sorry. Let's move on. Here we see the most common overcoat of the era. We'll see other coats. The frock coat will be coming in a minute, but for an overcoat meant to be worn outdoors, we have the great coat in England, or the Reading coat. Similar in cut to the Justicore, starting to replace it, has some boot cuffs. It also has a high collar that can be buttoned up to protect the lower half of the face. So you can see here, just is not really a Justicore. It's more coverage. And we'll talk a little bit about these collars in a second. Also, we see a everyday wearing coat that becomes sort of a evolution of the Justicore. This is the frock coat from the old French froc, F-R-O-C, which was basically a monk's robe. Then it became a frock dress, and then for men, the frock coat. It's a cash version of the Justicore. Not as full, shorter, and with a flat turn-down collar. You can see here in a contrasting fabric. This is English gentleman in the countryside. It has a looser fit, usually worn unbuttoned. The lining of the frock coat is usually in a contrasting color, as you see here. Number of changes to men's fashion. The waistcoat becomes shorter, as you can see, not as long. Some have a small peplum, kind of like this. Others were just straight cut. Breeches, because they were seen, were finer material, and cuffs became smaller. Collars and revers, or lapels, became wider. So without the full skirt of the Justicore, you start to see the silhouette of the male costume become narrower and straighter, as you can see here. So we're losing all of that frou-frou from the Baroque period, and some of the fullness, from the beginning of the Rococo, even some of the houppelons and stuff from the Middle Ages. This is it. This men's fashion from now on will be dedicated, or will be dictated by tailoring and fit more than any sort of accessorization there. So you're going to start to see this is the costume from now on for men, the three-piece suit. Men's accessories. Remember the bicorn hat? 2 points. How about the tricorn hat? 3 points. Made of felted beaver fur, often worn undecorated with a simple gimping or edging. The fur made it waterproof. If you were a man of fashion, aka a fop, a beau, or a coxcomb, you would decorate your tricorn with lace flowers or fur trim. So popular, tricorns became so popular that there was an insatiable demand for North American beaver, which supplied the felt for the hat. Beaver were almost wiped out in the north, in the border area between Canada and the United States, because of the insatiable demand. Now, here's the problem. Both British and French fur trappers wanted the felt. So there were disputes, which led to a war, the French and Indian War, was fought because people had freaking tricorn hats. So that's a good reason as any to fight a war, I guess. It lasted 7 years. There were other underlying factors, but that was a flashpoint. That the end result, that the French pretty much got kicked out of the area. England got Canada and the lands east of the Mississippi. Wigs. How about wigs? Full bottom wigs still worn around. Become simpler powdered wigs. We see here the most simple is the solitaire, a wig with a black satin bow. Actually, the black satin bow is called the solitaire. Another style to place the ponytail in a black satin bag, called a bagwig. And look, you also see here the side of the wig was brushed back, and the soft curls called pigeon wings. The ramille, which is this, a long braid with a solitaire on the end of it. And then at the home, at night, silk brocaded dressing caps. Cravat was standard neckwear for 18th century men. Simple band of cloth with lace edging, wrapped around the neck, and the decorative edge tucked under, then pulled through to cover the shirt fastenings. As you can see, very simple. Sometimes you have a pin, like shown down here, a decorative pin for evening wear, no less. Okay, so as regular ties today have clip-on ties, we have sort of clip-on cravats, which is a stock, which is just a stiff linen band wrapped around the neck, and you take a little bit of cravat and tuck it underneath, or sew it to the bottom of the stock. So this is the clip-on version of the cravat. Interestingly enough, we have a new type of jockey boot, a high stiff leather boot. But the thing that's most interesting is this part here that covers the boot to protect the boots from mud. These are spatterdashes. Spatterdashes, which is just fun to say. I'm going to say it one more time. Spatterdashes. What do spatterdashes do? They protect boots from mud. These will keep evolving into something you will see later on that I'm not going to talk about right now. Oh, and one more time. Spatterdashes. Women's costume, very sophisticated and varied in the Rococo period. More so when we get to neoclassical, but still pretty varied. So hang on to your corsets, people. Undergarments, a white muslin chemise, laced up the front or pullover, a muslin under petticoat, which was not meant to be seen, and of course, the corset. This is where the corset reaches one of its high water marks. It'll reappear when we get into Victorian England, Victorian England and the antebellum South. But right now it's stiffened with whalebone or metal stays, quite tight, stiffened with material made of rushes, buckram, usually laced up the back, but if you're pregnant or stout, you're going to lace up the side. But to get the optimal tiny waist, it's going to be laced up the back, and somebody's going to lace it up to you until it is painful. You can see the picture there. It's not an exaggeration. It does squeeze the rib cage. The only thing stopping it is the pelvic. So your pelvis is pushing against the muscle of your thigh, so it cannot have been comfortable. Also, what's coming back? Hoops. This is a new kind of hoops for a new age of enlightenment. These are called panniers. Just as a side note, some people may said panniers. That's okay now. We don't judge you, but please know that the correct pronunciation is panniers. Started in France, you can see they were tied to the waist and covered with muslin or buckram. You have all sorts of panniers. You have a collapsible, are very good because you can take them on trips, and then you can see tie them here. You have metal, then you go down here, and you have this coverlet that goes over it, and then you can drape your gown right over that. The manteau gown was worn well into the first 2 decades, very popular, but eventually placed by one-piece sack gown. Sack, spelled this way, is Latin for bag. Loose and unbelted and worn over panniers, so it's just a throw-on here. You might have lacings up the front that show a stomacher underneath. We have ruffles here known as robings, and this is pagoda sleeves, which are short sleeves with a little bow and a flaring out at the elbows. I bet you want to know what a variation of the sack gown is. That would be the cassaquine, a hip-length sack garment that was worn over a separate skirt over panniers. So also could have pagoda sleeves. So which one is this? It's kind of like this coat. See, right here, the upper half. Then an underskirt with panniers under. So right at the very beginning, there's not a lot of form of the feminine figure. These large sack gowns. That will change during the Louis XV's reign. So we start to see well-fitted gowns come back into vogue. This is one of the most representative, the robe à la française. Overskirt, matching underskirt, over stomacher, corset, and panniers. Decorated with pagoda sleeves, echelles, engageants, and lace and ribbon trim. You can see here, engageants, pagoda sleeves, echelle. Oops, where I lost my cursor. There it is. Underskirt, overskirt, all accounted for. Now, what made this? I can't go back. Shoot, it was fitted in the front. You can see well fitted, and in this you can see the back. What made this so distinctive was this shoulder to hem box pleating. This is known as the Watto back or Watto Pleats. named after the notable Rococo portraitist Jean-Antoine Watteau. I believe at the time they just called them pleats, but we call them Watto pleats because they figured up so much in Watteau paintings, which I think this is one of, so that's why we're seeing this. Here we can see the overskirt. You can see they are like a ditto suit for men. Overskirt, stomacher, petticoat, matching fabric, color, and decor to appear as a single gown. Train's coming, by the way. Well, another type of robe, besides the à la française, the robe à l'anglaise. French and English, huh? What's the difference? Well fitted in front and back, and no Watteau pleating. Often had a petticoat in contrasting fabric and or color from the overskirt. Also, you can see on here, this one, a new type of trim called ruching, which is satin bunched into very extremely tight gathers, which is used to this day. I like that she has this little cravat here too. That's very stylish. Here's the back of the robe à l'anglaise, which is separate panels sewn together to provide a tight fit. So you can see panniers, and to just accentuate that back, we have those panels or gores, excuse me, in the back, and no Watteau pleating. Accessories for the Rococo crowd. Headdresses were fairly simple in the first part of the century. A mob cap, which is basically a simple lawn bonnet. It's at top here, worn with sack gowns. Older women, they would have either, they would have both kind of this little gathering here, this little tie, and lappets. Why lappets? I think because it kept the ears warm. Why else would you wear lappets like that? We start to see simple pastoral garments making a fashion statement. One of the first is a simple a leghorn hat, which is a wide-brimmed straw hat with lace ties. We start to see a more elaborate version called the bergère, wider brim, deeper crown, and decorated, you can see, with ribbons and bows and such knots. Hairstyles, the tête de mouton, pardon me if I'm massacring that, tight part in the middle, large tight curls, and of course the pompadour, named after Madame Pompadour, I think was Louis XV's mistress, where the hair is pulled back into a tight high bun. Height is the key. Here are some shoes you can see, almost uniformly high heel, silk damask. These are surviving examples. You can see we still have the pattern clog that are matching the shoe. And this concludes Part B and the Rococo period. Part C will start to deal with the Neoclassical period. Thank you.